Inside New Orleans Sports with Eric Asher is underwritten by the Union Capital Corporation and Natel's Air Conditioning and Heating, a proud sponsor of the St. Jude Dream Home.
Good evening, New Orleans, and welcome to Inside New Orleans Sports. I'm your host, Eric Asher, and over the next hour, we're going to talk a lot about what's happening with the local sports scene. Of course, we'll talk a little bit about the New Orleans Saints, the New Orleans Pelicans. We'll get into some college basketball. And our guest tonight, good friend of mine, and of course, you know this guy, from 106.1 The Ticket, Gus Kattengell joins us. Gus, welcome. Thanks so much for coming down tonight.
Absolutely, man. It was a pleasure.
Really appreciate it. We are taping tonight's program, normally live on a Thursday, because of the 2014 First NBC tuition auction, which can be seen right here on WLAE-TV on Sunday, March 30th from 4 to 9. So we hope that you guys will get involved. Especially if you got your kids in Catholic school, it's a great way to kind of cut those costs. So make sure you check that out. And of course, over the next hour, we'll talk a lot about what's happening here in the world of sports. And Gus, before we get started, tell the folks a little bit about what's going on at the Ticket, what you guys got going. And of course, you got your hands on a bunch of different things. So let the folks know what's happening.
Yeah, always exciting, obviously, Eric. And, it's a station where it's the home for Dan Patrick, Jim Rome as well, and CBS Sports Radio. And obviously our show, The Sports Hangover, from 3 to 6. Also the home for Tulane football and basketball. I do Tulane women's as well. And so it's been fun. It's been kind of interesting to kind of see how this season's sort of gone. It's hard to believe, really, when you take a look at it. I mean, March we're really saying goodbye to, right? Next week we're in April, and next thing you know, it's going to be interesting and odd that the NFL draft is in May, but we've gone through free agency already for the most part, the hot and heavy stuff, seeing the way these teams have changed. And before you know it, we're going to be talking, Eric, OTAs, going into training camp, June mini camp, and then that 6-week period of training camp. It's just right around the corner.
Well, and again, it's Saints all year round. I mean, that's the thing. On this program, we'd like to branch out a little bit more, but I mean, again, the big topic has been the Saints. You look at where we are right now with the Pelicans; they're on quite a roll right now. But for a while there, they kind of moved to the back page. You know, people kind of quit paying attention because of the problems they were having in terms of getting wins. And of course, we've got the Zurich Classic coming up. Got a lot of different other sporting events.
It's festival season every weekend. You got French Quarter Fest coming up. The Jazz Fest lineup was released this week.
Yeah. No, and then also, I mean, we go from parades to festivals.
Absolutely.
You know, we just finished St. Patrick's Day.
Notice this beautiful bronze tan. That was the Irish-Italian parade Sunday. No, it's fantastic. But, it's interesting you bring that up, and you see all these different things that are taking place and going on. And it's crazy how the NFL, and obviously as long as you've been in the business and I've been in it as well, to see how the NFL really dominates the sports pages. There is no off season with them. You look at the major networks, the four-letter network, all that, their shows throughout the afternoon, the insiders, the reporters, the different takes, and players' movements makes different news. And it's interesting to see how it's cross over in different cultures. Mark Cuban this past week going out there and saying, hey, the NFL's saturating the market. He's an NBA owner. Right. So then you now have the NFL owners going back. But you know what? All of a sudden that's a topic. Because it's true. Do you like it too much? Do you not? It ties into the fact the commissioner wants to expand the playoffs. Right. Do you want another wild card or not? Hey, I'm for more NFL or not. But he has a good point. It's already Thursday. Do you want it Friday? It's Saturday, Sunday. The playoffs, do you extend it to a Monday night? How does that work? But before you know it, like you said, it's a topic during the week. You're talking about it. But more importantly, it's relevant because it means money. Well, another playoff games, another check to the local folks here.
And it's by design. I mean, this is all by design. I mean, they want to dominate the airwaves. They want it 24/7, and they want it 365.
If you didn't, you don't invite the reporters to the owners' meetings, right, in Orlando.
Yeah, so I mean, again, they're looking for that. And, I thought Cuban took a little bit of a shot at the NFL, and And anybody that believes that somehow, some way, the NFL is going to implode within the next 10 years is not watching what's going on. I mean, if anything, they'll be in a situation where maybe in 10 years from now, we will truly see an international game where you'll see a team in Canada, where you'll see a team in London.
Yeah.
I mean, that's where it's going. I don't know how fair that is to the NFL teams or the players, but ultimately that's, I think, what we'll see in 10 years from now. We'll see an expansion, maybe before the NBA does, before they go international. Of course, they'd like to go international as well. That was David Stern's baby, something he's working on now as commissioner to try to get the NBA international. The NFL may just beat them to the punch, depending on, again, two cities, Toronto, London, is what they're really keying on.
Right, you have that European kind of outlook and model, and the thing that's interesting to me is the NBA is kind of ready for that and built in it. You have so many different leagues. I mean, Stephon Marbury was being tweeted this week that he's in the championship game for the Chinese league. China loves the NBA. They're huge over there. You look at the European league, the Euros. I mean, you look at some of those guys in there. On NBA draft night, Eric, how many of those are European players? You know, some people are taking them on at 18, 19, letting them play another season in Europe before they come back and get it. So it is big there. And you are definitely seeing Toronto's emergence this year. They're back in the playoffs. It makes sense. You're right. The NFL, you don't have NFL Europe anymore. You know, Lance Moore was the last guy that really tied into that. That was a local member of the team. The thing that's interesting to me where it's going to go as well is you're hearing the NFL wanting to maybe tie into their next TV deal, Netflix and Google and, you know, YouTube, to where, because right now the NFL package, which is fantastic, in the Red Zone channel, but you have to be a satellite subscriber.
Right.
Not everybody wants the satellite dish on it. I think it's an amazing idea to be able to watch, because right now you're doing it with March Madness, right? The last 2 weekends, or the last weekend, when I was on the road in Starkville for the WNIT game, iPad, iPhone, MacBook. We had 3 different games going on. Imagine if you can do that with the NFL games, and I think that's where it's going to go, and that's how it can globalize.
No, I agree with you. Already look at it right now. Look at Drew Brees, what he's doing. He's on the rubber chicken circuit right now. What is he promoting? That Microsoft Surface pad that all the NFL teams are going to be using.
Yeah, there's a new site that they're coming out that's going to be just like that.
They're going to tie into that as well. No, I would agree with you. You know, talking about the NBA, before we kind of get into the Saints, before we kind of get into the Pelicans, you know, you mentioned the international game, the ability for players to be able to go overseas and to be able to play, in some cases, to kind of hone their skills overseas. We've seen a couple of players come right out of high school. They head to Europe. They play for a couple seasons and then apply their trade in the NBA. This week, Adam Silver, commissioner of the NBA, said that in lieu of the one-and-done rule, he would be in favor of a two-and-done rule.
Right.
I'm one that has really been against the opportunity for players to ultimately do one and done and head to the NBA. You know, Tim Grubbs, I think it was Sean Kelly, voice of the Pelicans, on my radio show about a year ago, came up with a concept that I thought would be a great concept for the NBA, where you treat it like Major League Baseball.
Right.
Where ultimately you can draft a kid out of high school, but you can't touch them till after their junior year. Looks like there'll be a kind of a happy medium here if ultimately Silver will get his way, where at least players will be able to stay at least 2 years in college before they head to the NBA. The only question is now you do that, you're opening up the opportunity for players to say, you know what, I'm not interested in going to the NCAA, I'm not interested in going to college.
Right.
They may take that route now and head to Europe and play for a couple seasons and then come to the NBA. What's your thought process? What are your thoughts about the NBA, the one and done rule, the possibility of going to two and done, and then maybe that exodus of high school players that would normally go to the NBA on their first year heading to Europe?
Man, we could do an hour on this, and I've done a lot of talk on this just the last 2 weeks. Just this week, you saw Northwestern football take that next step to unionizing and calling themselves employees. You're starting to see these lawsuits that are being filed. You know, we talked to Gabe Feldman, who's the director of sports law over there at Tulane, and talking about that lawsuit in which college players are going around there now saying, hey, you know, you got to pay us, and being in that nature. What's difficult to me to understand, and it goes back to the basketball, because obviously the one and done, you're not there for school. Now let's take that pretense all the way. Obviously you're not there for that, right? You're there to
hone your skills,
and
to showcase yourself.
That said, how much are you honing and looking at it? At the start of this basketball season, you had the Fantastic Four, right? Marcus Smart is a little older by 1 year, I think a sophomore at Oklahoma State. Then you had Andrew Wiggins for Kansas, Jabari Parker, and then Marcus Randall with Kentucky. And, for Duke. So those are the Fantastic Four. They're not in the tournament anymore. And watching them, yeah, sure, Andrew Wiggins he had a great first half at 10 points back on Thursday or Friday, I thought was the game. They were all fast break dunks. And I think when you take a look at it, my biggest proponent or case for them staying is Austin Rivers. Okay? 2 years ago, he's the 10th overall pick.
Right.
He's not the 10th overall.
Not even close.
No, he can't get on the bench. He can't get on the floor. Look at him now. He would have been a junior at Duke right now, right? Now you're actually starting to see him be serviceable with 9, 10, 11 points a game, where he's not turning the ball over. His body's more physically ready to go. People forget these are men you're playing with. And it's a different atmosphere than it. So I completely like what Silver's trying to do. I hear the argument that players should get paid. You shouldn't help them do. Maybe you do what you do with college baseball, where the guys that are truly good, they can go, right? Out of high school.
Sure.
But you have some sort of developmental league like the minor league system does in baseball. Then the NBA needs to go all in, make the NBDL, the developmental league, literally the minor league system, and it's about developing the players.
Well, and again, to me, one and done has really hurt the college game.
It's absolutely destroyed the college game. The bigger programs, Eric, you're looking at it right now. There's no Duke, there's no North Carolina in the NCAA tournament, the Sweet 16, and it allows, why didn't Mercer beat them? That's 7 seniors playing that game against Duke. Exactly
that are able to keep guys for
Those
4
kids aren't
years.
going nowhere, right.
They're going to have an opportunity to be able to make hay in the tournament now.
Correct.
And we saw this coming a couple years ago.
Correct.
You could see it coming again, and this is why. And look, there's nothing wrong with the mid-majors and the Cinderellas. That's a beautiful thing for the tournament.
Right.
But it is hard to build a program if you're an upper echelon.
How do you do that as a coach?
You can't.
Look at Johnny Jones for LSU basketball right now. 2014 season, I thought they had a successful season. 7 road game in the SEC losing streak, but they were in most of those, okay? We're talking about LSU basketball last couple of weeks and months this season.
Yes.
So I think it's going in the right direction. One of their big pieces is Johnny Bryant III. He came back last year. Now they're thinking he's gone. And the fact that we're even talking about a guy like Mickey or Jarrell Martin thinking about it. What are you thinking about? I'm looking at their game. They're not NBA
not
ready.
Even close to being
but that's
NBA
my
ready.
point, that those kids actually think they can. It's a disservice to them. More than anything else, you're not help the kid. And I that's why I think with the 2 years at the very least, it could be an associate's degree. You make sure that maybe that program and the curricular is specific for young athletes, to where it's finance, to where it's dealing with Twitter and social media, social norms, psychology, things of that nature, being able to handle that for the few that can become professional basketball players.
I would agree with you on Austin Rivers. You look at him now, and you imagine, you look at him now on a team where he's gotten a lot of playing time. If he would have went to another NBA team, he'd be at the end of the bench. He wouldn't be seeing the time that he's seen with the Pelicans. And you look at, if he would have been at Duke, he would have seen even more time. He'd had more of an opportunity to
might have been able to help a guy like a Jabari Parker or something like that. Now that team's a lot stronger. And I think that's the thing. You heard Coach K say we needed to lose. And you're seeing with Roy Williams as well. They're out of the tournament. They couldn't close at the end, right? The other team did. You can't substitute for veteran experience.
No, and that is given, for the first time in a long time, again, it has given mid-majors the opportunity to advance and to be a real part of the NCAA tournament. As far as the Tigers go, and you mentioned J.O.B. III, Johnny O'Bryant, I watch his game. I look at these mock drafts. The best he is looking at right now before he heads to Portsmouth or he heads to Chicago for the NBA camps, middle of the second round, late second round.
How many second rounders make
come on, not many. I was talking about Perry Jones III the other day. He ends up with Oklahoma City. He was supposed to be a lottery pick. He falls, okay? And he falls like a rock, but he's still a guy, if you remember a couple years ago in the tournament, he dominated the NCAA tournament.
Exactly
he blocked every shot. He led Baylor. And he's a guy that barely can get off the bench for Oklahoma City. Now, Oklahoma City is one of the top teams in the West, one of the top teams in the NBA. But still, this is a kid that would, again, if he would have stayed, probably another year, it would have helped him. What you look at is every year you've got the Perry Jones is coming out. You've got the Johnny O'Brien's coming out. And you got to be a special player that ends up with a team that can utilize your skills to get you on the court. To me, Johnny O'Brien, even though, again, he probably is gone,
right.
he would be a guy that could probably get himself set up as a number 1 pick, which is guaranteed money if he stayed one more year.
Yeah, and, Eric, you bring up a solid point as well, too, that I think what's been lost, we still love March Madness.
Yes,
we still love our
sure.
brackets. We still love doing that. But I think some of these kids forget, just as hard as winning an NBA championship or getting an NBA contract, is winning an NCAA championship. Look, for every Anthony Davis, LeBron James, Kevin Durant, man, there's 100 kids that won't see 5 minutes of action on an NBA court. They're not. They can think they're as good as not. We're talking about this on the show. When you have skills and you have talent, okay, you're the man in high school. There's no doubt about it. AAU, let's start before that.
Jarrell Martin.
Exactly. You were the guy. AAU coach, these Nike camps, the coaches getting paid. We all know how the AAU camps work. Man, ain't nobody telling you anything in high school. You were the guy. Right. You're dunking because he's playing against me, right? I mean, he's playing against you and me. So he's the guy. So he goes to one of the top schools. He's highly lauded. He's touted. Everyone's saying he's a fantastic 4 like these guys. They're going to be a lottery pick, top 4. They're great. They dunk. They look fantastic. They're gone. What have I not done, Eric, in the last 3 years? Goes back to your initial point to this argument. I haven't worked. Haven't worked on my game. There's no development of a mid-range jumper. There's no development on my defense. There's no development on ball handling. There's no development at turning and facing the basket. There's no development at running away from the ball, without the ball, back screens, away from screens, getting through screens defensively. Fundamental things that, you know what? I'm being asked as a fan to go to the Smoothie King Center and pay $150 to sit in that lower bowl, $50 to $45 in the corner of that lower bowl to watch a guy that doesn't know how to move without the basketball, to watch a guy that can't dribble or pass the ball, can't hit a 14-foot jumper, but is making $20, $15, $14 million. But you know what? He can dunk, man.
Right. Guaranteed. And another thing that you can see with the young players, it's hard to be developed on the NBA level as a young player.
There's no time.
There's no time.
You got to do it on the
travel,
court.
everything else. Then you got to dedicate yourself in the off season to do that. And then again, you've got to have that motivation to be able to get it done.
And it goes back to the coaches' philosophies are different, right?
Sure.
What is Monty Williams' number 1 priority?
Defense.
Win.
Oh, yeah, well.
Oh, his job's gone.
Sure.
Right? All these coaches, how many coaches last year in the NBA, in the Eastern Conference, gone, and they made the playoffs.
Agreed.
You look at the guy,
in Memphis.
George Cole in Denver, gone. In college, and it's starting to get to that point, where if you're not winning, you're done in 2-3 years. You're talking about Calipari. These, again, if I can name the coaches that are doing it, it's too few. So, now you got to grab these one-and-doners and try to do it in 1 or 2 years with a brand new crop of guys.
They're coach killers.
It's just,
there is no way. I mean, and Anthony Davis is few and far between.
Again.
And you've seen him grow from year 1 to year 2.
But
light years.
He's working at it.
But yes, and he's getting playing time. He's on a bad team.
Exactly right.
And he's the guy. And ultimately, no, there's no doubt it's rare.
21st birthday, has a party, doesn't have any alcohol.
There you go.
I mean, again, and he's a number 1 overall pick, but he outworks everybody. And as we get into the conversation with the Pelicans, his demeanor, you're seeing this team take on his persona and embody everything that he is, and that's so rare to have.
Well, let's talk a little bit about that because I'm of the opinion that when it comes to the Pelicans, and I talked about this on last week's show, it almost was a blessing in disguise, the type of injuries they had this year. When you talk about some of the veteran guys that got injured, Drew Holiday, of course, you can talk a little bit about some of the other injuries, but this was a veteran-laden team, 4-year veteran guys. It would have been very difficult, and even in the beginning, to be able to, even though Monty Williams may have preached it, hey, this is Anthony's team.
Right.
The veterans didn't buy into it. They had, but now Davis has had the opportunity with the injuries to all the players that have been injured throughout the season to really kind of wrestle this and to make this his team now. Going into next season, it's Anthony Davis's team.
No question.
So this has been if anything, it's been a great transition in terms of him growing as a player, but also growing as a leader.
Yeah, so many places to even start with that. You're talking about the growth that he's had. We kind of got little hints, and I want to say the last time I was on the show with you, we talked a little bit about that. Remember, we kind of starting to see a snapshot of maybe things to come. We saw in the Summer League, he was the guy that was working out before the summer team practice, the Summer League team practice. Then he stayed through practice, and he would break down practice. He'd be the guy. get in the middle, put his hands up,
Right.
everybody get it, and then he would critique it.
Yes.
There's no need for him to do that. He was there for himself, but he went there and did that. Then we saw his Team USA week when they were looking at the next group of Team USA players. If Kyrie Irving doesn't go bananas in that blue and white game, he's the MVP of that game. And you saw him do things that was insane. Coast to coast on the court, defense, offense, the jumper, and you're like, whoa, look at him. And then immediately you saw it this year, but you bring up a very good point. Ryan Anderson, Drew Holiday, Tyreek Evans, they were brought in to score. They are your scores. And we're all wondering, how are they going to fit in with this, and how is AD's roles going to go? Well, look at just the growth and transition in this year. You mentioned the injuries that take place. Now, all of a sudden, this guy not only has to do it on the defensive end, which he's doing an unbelievable job, but he's leading the team in scoring. He's become a scorer, which is, it's crazy when you think of what he's had to do, but now he's embodying all of the little things that you can't coach, Eric. There's no reason for this team to play as hard as it does, or even him. And I don't mean that in a negative, derogatory way.
It's the NBA.
But you're out of the playoff race. This guy's diving for every loose ball. He's fighting for every game. It bothers him when they lose. You can see it, that it can't close. And what I love is they've taken the approach of, you know what, we're getting a head start for next year. Yes, we're not going to be in a postseason. But you talk about this little streak going on now. 3 wins going into Wednesday's game against the Clippers. And they were against 3 playoff teams in the Eastern Conference.
Yes.
I get their week in the Eastern Conference.
Still.
But it's the 2nd seed, it's the 5th seed in the Nets, Miami being the 2nd, and the Hawks in the 8th. You beat them without Eric Gordon, who was hurt. So add him to the hurt list. And it's crazy. What I love is you see the team still fighting, they're still playing hard, but I think it's because of him. They're seeing what he's doing. And if you hear him talk after games now, Eric, he sounds like LeBron. He sounds like Kevin Durant.
Agreed.
He says Tyreek Evans needs to make some free throws. We all need to make free throws. I need to do better at this. I need to do better at that. And he's speaking more eloquently. He's more confident. You can hear him know what he's saying. More importantly, he told Coach to leave Anthony Murrow in that game on Monday. Coach is starting to trust him because he's bringing to back the bench, the feel on the floor. There was a point guard that used to be here that did the same thing.
Well, let me say this, and of course that guy's playing in the New Orleans Arena tonight as we're taping this show. You also can look at some of the conversation that's been had between him and recent interviews that he's done lately. One of the things he's talked about consistently is Monty Williams as his coach. You know, there's been a lot of talk about Monty Williams no longer being here at the end of the season, that you can't continue to have these poor seasons where you can't win, that the excuses are, they've run out of excuses. Well, I've read at least 3 different interviews in the last 10 days where he makes a point to say, Monty Williams is my coach. We're growing together as a coach. I want him to be my coach. And you know as well as I do in the NBA, the star is the one who designates who's going to be the head guy.
And Eric, you know from us doing our shows together, we saw firsthand, unfortunately, what happens when a player loses faith and trust into an organization. It was clear as day. It was palpable. We can go back to the minute, the moment, the feeling, the smell of the locker room when Tyson Chandler was traded. Byron Scott went, what's going on? Chris Paul said, I can't believe they did that. David West said, you did what? And that was it.
It was it.
CP3 became CP me. David West said, we're starting to plan it. He actually came out and said that this year going into the All-Star game, that they knew 2 years before their deals ended up.
There was an exit strategy.
They were done. There was an exit strategy. Exactly right. That's what he said during NBA All-Star Week. And you can't blame him. The organization failed from top to bottom systematically. Horrible moves, bad contracts, not listening what they're doing, not having a plan.
Cash poor owner.
Oh, it's just.
I mean, when you think about where they were and where they are now, and look, that's been a bone of contention with a lot of fans still today that feel a little bit jilted by what CP3 did. Not so much David West. You know, almost David West.
Yeah, we could all understand that.
Everybody gets a pass with David West. He was here for a while. He was coming off a major injury. He was at the twilight of his career. You want him to catch on and try to win a championship. But CP3, a lot of people really felt that you know what, they were really angry about the way. And look, I didn't like the way he pushed himself out. But ultimately, you got to almost understand why it happened.
And he actually did it better than a lot of players.
No, a lot of players
just
will come out. But think about it. From George Shinn, selling off draft choices, to the Tyson Chandler situation, not having the cash to be able to pay players. Look who was in the front office at that time, okay? Going through the coaches, and then the NBA taking over the team, having to go through that transition. Are they going to be here? Are they not? Who's going to be the owner at that point? There was no way for Chris Paul to know that Tom Benson was going to own this team. And if he did, I don't know at that point, there was such a sour taste in his mouth. If ultimately it would have made a difference at that point.
No question about it.
You know, but you got a fresh start now. And when you look at it, you're lucky. Because again, it's hard to catch lightning in a bottle twice. But they have. They've actually kind of upgraded. You got Chris Paul, and you got the best years out of Chris Paul you ever could get. Now you're in a situation where you're looking at this guy who is growing, and he seems to be that Kevin Durant type that if you surround him with a winning team, he's not going to be a guy that's saying, I got to go back to Chicago, or I got to be in LA, or I got to be in Miami or New York. He may be a guy that humble as he is, that he may say, you know what? This is a great franchise. I'm in a great situation, and I maybe want to be here and win a championship. And I'll tell you what, it's almost like Drew Brees all over again in terms of how they've been able to find this guy and ultimately allow him to kind of grow here. This is, for Pelican fans, you got to keep an eye on what's going on there, because if they can get a few more pieces, get these guys back from injury, this team could be a playoff team, perennial playoff teams from this point forward. It's
an exciting time. It really is, because you're getting to watch something that we don't really get to see a lot of, to be honest with you. And you know this from covering sports as long as we both have in this city. The Sean Payton, Loomis era, why do we hold on to it so much? Why do we love it? It doesn't happen very often. I mean, there are teams and organizations, the Browns, the Raiders, the Jaguars, the Chargers, I mean, we can go on, that aren't experiencing things like that. And you might get a good player, but is he that kind of a guy? I mean, even in Green Bay, they've had success, but a lot of people think Aaron Rodgers is kind of arrogant. He's to himself. He's kind of hard to get. Now, again, that's just what people write and say. You don't hear any of that with what you have here. It's the locker room. You know, Sean Payton in the owners' meetings talking about on Wednesday morning what he looks for in a young quarterback. And he says, Eric, he has to come across like he's a CEO. So obviously they look for smarts. They look for a certain kind of player, a certain kind of character. AD, he's a guy that is bothered by losing. He's a guy that leads by example. He's just starting to come out of his shell vocally and leading on the court verbally, you know, demanding and holding players accountable now. You look back at that win on Monday, and again, I'm not trying to make anything out of it more than anything is. And then you go back on Saturday against the Heat. Those are games that came late, and they found ways to close out, which they were losing early in the year. Austin Rivers said, we're starting to learn how to do that and find ways. Again, no substitute for experience, Eric. You have to be there and understand it. But it's Anthony Murray saying, I'm not coming out. It's Austin Rivers saying, hey, give me the ball, I'll keep doing it. Brian Roberts hyperextends his knee, stays in the game, hits a three. It's Anthony Davis grabbing the ball from Plumlee saying, get out of here. You know, this is my ball. And the crowd going nuts. You're starting to see something, like you said, that's a snapshot. And then Rivers saying more than anything else that team, the Nets, back on Monday, had all these all-stars on it, and that last year, he and AD were kind of in awe.
Sure they were.
Remember he said that. He's like, they're in awe. He's like, now we're playing, and we're playing amongst ourselves, and we believe in one another. And it goes back to your initial comment, what you said with Anthony Davis and Monty Williams. This generation, this age, Eric, with our smartphones, whatever, we want it now. We want our answers now. We want our
instantaneous, right? Instant gratification.
What I say on the show is very simple, and I said it last time I was here. Right? Remember the Hives Alive in 5 when they were the Hornets? I'm still trying to come up with the blender, maybe Splendor in 5, whatever. But are you going to win the NBA championship this year? No. It's the Heat or the Thunder or the Spurs, whatever. So you're not going to do it this year. You're not there yet. So relax. You know, let's see what you can do. Build your team. Get going. Make smart decisions. Make smart moves. Let them grow. You got 2-3 years. They're not a contender 2-3 years from now. I want them to be in the playoffs in a year or two. Second round by year 3, right, of the AD era, which is starting to get there. And then, you know, in 5 years when he's 23, 24, he's going to be an MVP candidate. And MVP candidates do what? They help your team win and push you to the next level.
Well, 30-40 as we tape this show tonight. Of course, they were playing the Clippers this evening. 7 of their last 10, 4 of their last 5. Before we head to our break, what has changed? What has changed that automatically, when people are paying attention to March Madness, have wrote this team off for the season, what has changed to kind of turn this season around to where, I dare say, with 12 games left, is it out the realm of possibility that they go 500? I mean, that ultimately they win 30. You tell somebody they're going to win 36 games and they're not going to have Anderson. They're not going to have Drew Holiday. They're going to lose Evans. They're going to lose Davis.
Right.
They're going to lose Gordon. They're going to have all these injuries that they've had throughout the season. Jason Smith gone. I would have said, no, they're going to be back in the lottery.
Right.
Okay? And they got a shot to maybe win somewhere between 32 and 36 games.
Funny you say that. Beginning of the season, even on your show, right before the first game, how many games could they win? I said, you know what? And I said, 30 to 35, I'm happy. Because last year, all the playoff teams were 40 wins. So 30 to 35 is a lot better than what you had last year, and it shows improvement, and I want to see what you can do. Hey, there were 30 wins going into the game against the Clippers.
With all the injuries.
Aaron Gordon's hurt. Brian Roberts was day-to-day, wasn't playing today, obviously Wednesday. Austin Rivers has an upper respiratory infection. So Tyreek Evans is your point. Look, if they stay within 30 of the Clippers, you got no bodies.
Right.
But that said, you're asking me what changed. I think it's the internal belief of, you know what? It's us against the world. Nobody expects us to win. Coach, they want him out. Players stink. Aminu, please don't shoot. You know, Murrow, you're a bum. I mean, all these things that people read and everything. And I think we've seen time and time again teams and players internally compartmentalize, right? And they become closer together. And again, you go back to what Austin Rivers said Monday after the game. We're together in this locker room. We play for ourselves. And we're starting to learn how to do it. And again, I know it's just the Nets. I know it's just the Heat. But what you're seeing on the court now isn't, what do I do with the ball, which you saw at the beginning of the year. You know, where do I go? There's indecision. No. They are winning it on the court. They are coaching themselves on the court to an extent and holding each other accountable now. And I'm telling you, it starts with number 23. They see what he does on the court.
But you say it's the Nets, you say it's the Heat, but again, remember, the Heat statement game.
Yeah.
You're playing against a world champion. Even when they were up 10 with the time winding down,
Right.
I'm watching.
They made a run.
I'm going.
Yeah, here we go again.
Are they going to lose this lead again
Yep.
like they do? Coming back from 22 against the Nets when they destroyed them in Brooklyn.
Right.
I mean, that's a statement there. Also, I mean, I think a lot of fans are a little bit miffed that Tyreek Evans was not put in the starting lineup quicker.
Yeah, what took so long, right?
Again,
It's night and day.
But some players just can't come off the bench.
And
it's just not in their psyche.
That's what Coach says.
He's proven that,
Yeah.
you know what, he's a much better player if you give him the opportunity to start and then give him the leeway to do what he does.
And I think that's a very important point that you bring up. We forget, and I try to remind fans, they wanted Monty fired on my show in November.
Come on. Are you kidding me?
I said, guys, they haven't played a month of basketball. Dell Demps and Monty Williams put together an entirely new roster from last year. Again, a brand new point guard. This isn't Grievous Vasquez entering his third season as the Pelicans point guard. This isn't Austin Rivers trying to be a shooting guard. No, he's coming off the bench now. This is a couple of Tyreek Evans. Where does he go? Give them time, and now you're seeing what happens when they have time, and they're playing together and gelling. Let's see what happens. My concern is the Ryan Anderson injury.
Right.
That surgery on April 8th. Hopefully it's not the Peyton Manning 12 to 18 month rehab. It's the other surgery, which could be a 6 to 8 week rehab, which is not as invasive.
My concern is when Drew Holiday comes back, trying to figure out what you're going to do with that three-guard rotation. I believe that Eric Gordon will be on the block. His contract now more palatable to be traded.
Right.
You're looking at 2 years left. There is a player option that last year. You could probably move him in the offseason. A lot of people have been saying that they believe that he will opt out of his last year to try to get a 4-year deal,
right.
which gives him a little more security than the 1-year deal at $15 million. So that's more palatable maybe for a team to go after him. But again, Drew Holiday coming in and realizing, hey, this kind of was my team.
Right.
It's AD's team now.
No question.
So we'll have to see what happens there. Gus Kattengell of 106.1 The Ticket. My name is Eric Asher. I'm your host each and every Thursday here on Inside New Orleans Sports. We'll take a quick pause for the cause. We'll come back. We'll switch gears. We'll talk a little Saints. Stay tuned for more Inside New Orleans Sports.
Inside New Orleans Sports with Eric Asher is underwritten by the Union Capital Corporation and Natel's Air Conditioning and Heating, a proud sponsor of the St. Jude Dream Home.
My life is full of statistics. Thing is, I could have dropped out of school and become one myself. but I didn't because I had people that believed in me. Here's another statistic. 7,000 students drop out every school day. That's one every 26 seconds. It's time that students know that we believe in them.
Inspire a student and share your message of support at boostup.org.
St. Jude Children's Research Hospital is literally saving kids' lives.
It's a very special place, friendly place.
To see the kids that they're helping on a daily basis was unbelievable.
Families never receive a bill from St. Jude.
Discoveries made at St. Jude are freely shared.
The hardest cancer cases in the world go to St. Jude. We won't stop until no child dies from cancer.
Join us.
Join us
in supporting Hoops for St. Jude.
Visit stjude.org/hoops to find out how.
Welcome back to Inside New Orleans Sports. I'm your host, Eric Asher, each and every Thursday night, 6 p.m. right here on WLAE-TV, with a rebroadcast each and every Friday night, 10 o'clock here on WLAE-TV and Pelican Sports Television in New Orleans, Baton Rouge, and Lafayette. Our guest tonight, Gus Kattengell of 106.1 The Ticket. Gus, when can folks catch you on The Ticket with your great sports show?
3 to 6 p.m. each and every weekday.
Make sure you guys check it out. It's a great show. Gus, let's shift gears to the Saints with the remaining time we have. And interesting, down at the owners' meeting, a lot of things happening. And one of the first things that Saints fans were kind of taken back was the Graham rule.
Right.
You know, your thoughts.
I could understand. I mean, you saw this coming on Thursday night when that game at Atlanta took place, and the goalposts are, bent sideways, and you have to stop the game. And that's what Rich McKay said. And obviously, it's not a rule because they hate the Saints and Jimmy Graham and all that. You're starting to see it, and I could completely understand it. I mean, if you damage the goalpost and you have to stop gameplay, and that affects it. And you know better than anybody, the NFL is a television show. It's to the T, when it starts, the kickoff,
Can't
the
be
second
running late
game.
for 60 minutes.
No, and Rich McKay brought it up on Wednesday. He said, look, some stadiums, the sleeves in which the goalposts are on, it can't, maybe some aren't like Atlanta. The indoor stadiums and the domes, they're used to taking them in and off because it's a multifunctional venue. Well, what if you have these outdoor football stadiums and those things they're in there and it's bent and now you can't fix it? Now it's going to affect the gameplay. It can affect how long all that is. So I understand it, and I'm sure they'll find a way to,
Well, he'll figure it out.
Yeah, he'll figure it out.
As far as the Saints go, one thing that Sean Payton talked about this week, something I think we all knew. Of course, we know Graham has been tagged with a non-exclusive rights tag. There are no takers up to this point that want to give up two first-round draft choices at this point. He is in complete belief, as I am, a long-term deal will get done.
Right.
That he will not play on this tag this year. What are your thoughts?
Absolutely. There's no question about it. More importantly, two main reasons, Eric. From the team standpoint, you can spread that money around.
Oh, yes.
No one wants to cut that $7 million check. From the player standpoint, it goes back to what you were mentioning with Eric Gordon, financial security. I mean, you don't want that one-year deal. You want to sign all that because, as we know in the NFL, different from the NBA, different in Major League Baseball, it's the guaranteed money. That's all you get.
All you get.
That signing bonus, that's all you get.
It.
I can sign you to a 40-year, $400 million deal, 23 guaranteed. That's what you know you're getting.
Well, look, you can see it down just in the deals they've done this season.
Absolutely.
Zach Strief signs a 5-year deal. Zach Strief won't see the last 2 years of that deal.
Exactly
he
right.
knows that.
You do that because you can spread that around.
You can amortize that signing bonus over a 5-year period.
Exactly.
And that's what you've seen even with the Jarius Byrd signing.
Right.
Again, it's a 6-year deal, but they amortize that signing bonus over 5 years. Well, and make those first couple of years cap friendly. But for Jimmy Graham, it's a little bit different. His deal may be about $7 million for that first year in terms of the cap hit, depending on what they're going to do. The thing is, again, as you mentioned, the guaranteed money and getting that and making sure that if something does happen, that you're covered over the long term. It'll be interesting to see how this kind of works out. But just by the comments that Peyton has made, that Loomis have made, there at least are some conversations going. And there was a report this week that they felt on Pro Football Talk that the Saints felt that they would have it done, the contract done before the April 22nd grievance hearing, which again, I think the NFL would like to see it done before then because they don't want to have to go down that path if they don't have to.
Right, and obviously, and we explain it to fans, you have to understand that that's a normal and the only thing you can do, obviously. From that standpoint, it's a no-lose situation for them. You want to see what you can get or what's gone that way. I think what's interesting is this. I need Magic Mickey, as I call him, not Magic Mike, but Magic Mickey Loomis, to come balance my checkbook and get my finances going. I have no idea how they do it every year, but they do. And what we explain to fans all the time is Jimmy Graham right now is paid for this coming season. They have set aside that $7 million. The money that they have right now in the cap, under the cap, includes the $7 million franchise tag to Jimmy Graham. So he's paid for.
Yes.
He's good to go.
Right.
He's going to play, or he holds out. It's on him.
And he's not going to hold out.
He's not going to do it. And again, you heard him on the owners' meetings, Sean Payton, say, look, we know it's going to be, it's like Drew Brees. It's not if, it's when. Both sides have to get to it. It's always about money. Eric, you know how it is. It's about money. I think what was important that I took out of his comments this week was he said the representation and Jimmy Sexton, he and Mickey Loomis respect each other. You notice one thing, you're not seeing Jimmy say anything on Twitter.
Comments.
There's no animosity.
Right.
More than anything else, Sean Payton this week said he understands, and he said the exact word was antiquated, the franchise tagging tight end and receiver. When the question was asked, are you surprised he's trying to get paid like another? He goes, look, it's today in NFL. The second leading receiver for the Saints last year was running back Pierre Thomas under Jimmy Graham, the tight end. It wasn't a receiver. So I think what he's saying is we pass the ball more. You can't just say it's by this and that. So the franchise tag, he thinks in the future is going to be changed. It may just be receiver, runner, quarterback, I think, or defender,
But that's why I think that the NFL would like to see them get this done before the grievance period. They don't want to have their hand forced for them.
Right.
Okay? And I'm sure that, again, they've whispered in the ear, if you can get this thing done before the grievance period, do it.
Well, right here, Judge Berrigan and all that, went with the lockout. She kept pushing it, it. You guys, get it together. You guys, please don't make.
She almost begged them to get it together.
Yes, absolutely.
Right.
No, you definitely want it done there.
Zach Strief, I thought it was a big signing. Again, especially along the offensive line when you look at, still got some young players there. There's a possibility we even heard today, as of the taping of this show, that for the first time, Tim Alito's name was mentioned as a possible center candidate. A lot of people have talked about maybe Jonathan Goodwin coming in and being maybe that stopgap, maybe that insurance policy. But I thought it was a really good move for them to lock Zach Strief up. And because, again, if you look at the statistics, for the most part, he was on an island this year.
Right.
I mean, again, they helped out the other left tackle, whoever it was going to be, and they told him basically, you're on your own.
Right.
And he performed probably his best season as a pro.
Yeah, no question. And you go back to when he first came on with this team, Eric, he was a guy that could play multiple positions. He was the eligible, position.
64 eligible.
Exactly,
right.
in the backfield and all that. So, and more than anything else, he's one of the best guys in the locker room to go talk to. He's a great teammate. He's really become what John Stinchcomb was. And you remember covering him.
Point.
He's a leader on that line more than anything else. And, we talked about it all season. Fans want to compare and contrast. We forget it's been 4 NFL seasons since the Super Bowl. On that offensive line, you had a center that went out and got big money at his position. You had a right tackle in Stinchcomb, who's a Pro Bowler who retired. Jari Evans makes one of the top contracts at his position at right guard. The left tackle went out, got big money in Bushrod with the Bears. The left, guard in Carl Nicks went out and got top money. You had 5 players that had top money in the NFL at their position. That's not what you had last year. I mean, it's a different offensive line.
And an offensive line that's got to kind of grow.
Exactly right. So I like what you saw with Teron Armstead. He got better as it went. I keep referring to the Pierre Thomas touchdown against Tampa Bay, in which he wasn't touched on the left side. It almost seemed like Willie Roaf, man.
Yes.
He wasn't touched for 4 or 5 yards, and it was just glowing. Now give him a full off season, a full OT, a full camp. It's going to be awesome to see. I still think, as Sean Payton said Wednesday, you've got some nice interior young linemen in this draft. They've done an insane job of drafting players or grabbing guys that are undrafted rookie free agents.
Middle rounds, they've done a great job with linemen.
But they know that has to happen. There's no doubt about it.
The Saints move on from Jed Collins. They bring in Eric Lorick. Peyton said that he didn't. A lot of people are thinking, this is going to be more of a running team going forward. I never really bought into that, and I thought Peyton kind of said the same thing. I think they're going to run the football more, but they're still going to be a Peyton team. They're still going to throw the football first. As long as Drew Brees is behind the center, They're going to throw the football. Yeah. But Eric Lorig, what does he bring to the table?
Man, I love Lorig. I tell you what, how can you not, right? 6'4", 250 pounds. Here's what's interesting. Over at Stanford, he was a DN. Yes. Then he was a tight end. Then they drafted him in Tampa Bay as a DN, put him back as a fullback. He can also play tight end as well. What does that tell you? Well, he has recorded sacks in NCAA in the stats, right, at Stanford. So he has athleticism, he has speed, and he has brawn. And I think what's interesting, what we saw, and Eric, I went back on my show, and do you know Deuce McAllister was the last Saints running back to rush for 1,000 yards individually? 2006.
A long time.
It's a long time ago. Haven't had a 1,000-yard back.
Right. It's been running back by committee since
correct. Then. You look at, in the Sean Payton Loomis era from 2006 to 2013, the years the Saints have rushed for over 100 yards, cumulative as a team. Record, I mean, it's playoffs, Super Bowl championship.
Absolutely.
Okay? 2009, 2011, which we all believe was a year that, man, they could have gone if they don't lose at San Francisco. And probably that was a Super Bowl team. We all agree with that.
I think we agree.
Same thing. Those were the top and the second highest. It was in the 130s, average per game. Okay? And in 2011, before the Payton dismissal and all that suspension, 12 of 16 games, 100 yards rushing or more. You can't argue with the stat. This team, when they rush for 100 yards a game, it could be 40, 20, 30. Right. It doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter.
It gets to 100, this team wins. It's that simple. And you look at 06 to 2013, when they get below 100, 8-8, 8-8, out in the first round play. I mean, it's right there.
Right.
I look at Lorig, and it tells me one thing. We are going to run the football more. I agree with you completely. This isn't a 30-carry game, but the times, and as Sean Payton said last year, the times they run the football, they need to be productive. Instead of a half a yard to yard, he wants 3 to 4 yards a carry.
They can't be predictable, and that's been part of the problem with them running the football.
Right, so there goes Sproles. So what do you have now? Now you're going to have a guy, and I think the playoff games is a great snapshot of what I think you're going to see this year. It was Kyrie Robinson, Mark Ingram, or Mark Ingram, Kyrie Robinson. The two highest carriers, the two bulk. Here comes Pierre. He's your third down back. He could also run it. He's your guy for the screen. He's a good pass protector as we build Kyrie to throw it or run it. But I think that's what you're going to see. It's Ingram and Robinson. Those are your ball carriers. And Pierre's going to be a complementary piece to that. And I think Lorig's going to help because there's too many situations, Eric, where there is 31, 4th and 1, first and goal, the 1 yard line, and you have to pass the football. You can't do that.
I think we would agree that Mickey Loomis did a great job of, again, testing the waters out there with Darren Sproles, getting a 5th-round pick for him. They would rather have not had to trade him back in the NFC, but again, when you can't walk away from a 5th-round pick. But I guess my question is, that has been a dimension of this offense since Payton has come on board, with a Reggie Bush first, then a Darren Sproles. Do they look for that type of player, that prototype, that clone in the draft? The ability to move that linebacker, to freeze that safety, to dictate where they're going to go simply with movement of a guy that again, has game-breaking speed out of the backfield. They don't have that guy right now. A lot of people talking about Travaris Cadet. He's not that guy. Right. He's a nice guy, nice player, but he's not that guy. Do they go out and try to get that in the draft?
I absolutely think they do. And you brought up a very key word in that phrase just now, speed. That dictation happened because you had to respect Reggie Bush's speed.
Yes.
You had to respect some of those guys. Darren Sproles, when he came in 2011, you had to respect that. The Saints slowed up on offense. I mean, there's just no other way to look at it.
Across the board, wide receivers.
You can see it.
And running backs.
If we need any more proof positive, Lance Moore, Darren Sproles, they're gone.
Yes.
Okay, so I think what you're seeing is doing that. Now, the great beauty about that is we can go back to the college game. Eric, what are you seeing right now that's working in the college game? It's the spread offense, the zone read.
Yes.
Athletes, right? Like the Clemson QB. Is he an NFL quarterback? I don't think so. But could I put him in that backfield and he can be a Darren Sproles type guy? It's a lot easier, I think, nowadays to find a guy that has speed, has some hands. Maybe he's a quarterback at a smaller school or another school. He's not going to be your pocket passer, but maybe he turns around and becomes an athlete. We've seen it in the past, whether it's Ward or a couple of other receivers that have gone on to have good careers that were quarterbacks in the past. I think we're going to start seeing that. Plus, right now in college, you're seeing guys that are just recruited as athletes. and they're doing different things. So I think you'll see a guy like a Travaris Cadet. That's a perfect case in point. He played QB, played this, and but you can find those guys late in the draft. You can find those guys undrafted rookie free agents. And I don't need to tell you, they did a tremendous job last year on the defensive line of getting guys that weren't even drafted that wound up making the team.
Well, it's an interesting comparison. When you look at the Saints, they have not gotten a lot of compensatory picks. They're probably one of the teams out there that gets the fewest compensatory picks. You look at other teams between the 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th round, they're getting all these compensatory picks. It's moving you down the draft. But they've made up for that with undrafted free agents.
They do an insane
job. They have
job.
done a great job. And again, it's their reputation. If you come to New Orleans, no matter how great the team is,
get a shot to make the team.
You got a legitimate shot to make the team.
No question about it. And I think that helps, Eric, because it's almost like a bit of free agency. Right? It almost helps.
Yes.
Because those players get to choose.
And they're cheap.
Yeah. No question.
Honestly, when you're putting together, you got to count that top 51 salaries. Those are the guys that are not costing you a lot of money, and those are also the guys.
Tyron Walker, Glenn Foster. I mean, again, those have helped you say, okay, Kenyon Coleman's going to go away. And so you're seeing a lot of that happen. And, I think it's interesting that's what's helped with this team, and that's what they're going to do, and that's what makes it exciting. And I say this all the time, and you know this from covering them. There is nothing that team does when a decision is made, when a press conference is held, when a statement is released, or when a sound bite's been given that hasn't been researched, rehearsed, thought about, and specifically done for the time. When Mickey Loomis comes out there at the Senior Bowl and says he's a tight end. When Drew Brees goes on national shows during the Super Bowl, he's a tight end. Right? When Sean Payton goes out there and says, maybe we could re-sign De La Puente, but we got guys that are in-house. We got good interior linemen in draft. He's telling you, Brian De La Puente, we can upgrade, and that was a problem, that was an issue. When they make these moves and you let go of your Will Smiths, your Roman Harpers, your Malcolm Jenkins, look, there's some concern. That's a lot of snaps.
Well, it's a lot of leadership.
Right? They've worn
more than
the
anything
C.
else, leadership.
Exactly right. They've worn the C on there. But what are they saying? It's understanding and knowing. And the analogy I used when the first week of free agency started and all these releases started happening, Eric, we have to find an analogy that we can all relate to in life. And it's when you're in that relationship, knowing when to say when.
Yes.
And we all know, at some point in time, we've all been in something, whether it's a pet, a job, a relationship, something, where it comes a time where it's time to walk away. You can either do it too early, the right time, too late. And you have to look at this division, you look at this conference. The Seahawks aren't going anywhere just yet. 49ers are tough. You had a 10-6 team in the Cardinals in the NFC West that didn't make the playoffs. Would have if they expanded. Look, the Packers aren't bad as well. And then you look in your division alone and what you're seeing. Tampa is talented at a horrible coach, no quarterback. They bring in a defensive coach. He's got a silly line and Lovie Smith. Panthers won the division. They got a young, energetic defense. Newton just doesn't have to lose a game. And look, let's be honest, like the Saints in 2012 or in the past, you got to imagine that the Falcons aren't going to have the injuries that they had last year. This is going to be a tough division. And you have to go, okay, got to get younger, got to get faster, got to improve.
But to your point, Gus, I think this happened by accident last year with the defense. They were willing to go with the Smiths and the Harpers. They were willing to go.
You're absolutely right.
They found out by accident.
Almost too loyal.
Okay, they were too loyal.
Yeah.
Honestly, it was a fault.
Yeah.
They were trying to hold on to these guys with the experience and honestly, guys that you saw the year before. You go back in your mind's eye of chasing guys down, not having enough speed. It was the number one thing we talked about in the offseason. They had to upgrade the speed. Because of injuries, because of a lot of things that happened, it happened by accident. Bam, all of a sudden, you got this young defense, and it's like, okay, so what does he do? He sees that. He's been away from the game for a year. He looks at his offense and says, okay, I'd rather let's go ahead and purge now. That's why you saw Sproles. You saw more. Both these guys are going to have nice years with Pittsburgh and Philadelphia, respectively.
It's long term.
Okay, but the bottom line is they knew they had to get younger. You look at the draft. Very, very top heavy. A lot of great wide receivers in this draft. They got a lot of depth. That's a position of need. Really, when you look at this draft, it is a position that they're having to fall into a really nice situation because where they need players, they have a great depth in this draft, and that'll be interesting to see how they do there. Jarius Byrd, how big of a signing is this for this team?
Well, it's a shocker. I mean, I think everyone in free agency thought it was not only, they called it a coup. I mean, like, how did he did, again, I call him Magic Mickey. I don't know how he does it. They did. And what it does is, what did we just talk about? Losing leadership and snaps back there, right? The only safety you had was Kenny Vaccaro, who was coming back from injury. Raphael Bush hasn't signed his tender yet. He's been tendered for a year. I like him, by the way.
Me too.
That's nice because this team excelled with a 3 or 4 safety at time look last year. So Bush will be back there, Vaccaro, Byrd. Now, what have you done by signing Jarius Byrd, you're asking me? He and Raphael Bush are your free and strong safety. Now Kenny Vaccaro can do what he did last year. He's your roamer. He's what Woodson did when he was doing really well at Green Bay. It's going like he's doing everything. He can be a guy that covers your tight end. He proved that last year. He can be the guy that comes in against a running team and plays aggressive, takes that inside receiver, does all that. You've allowed Kenny Vaccaro to be Kenny Vaccaro by going to get Jarius Byrd. Plus, you bring a solid locker room guy, leadership guy. He's won different awards in Buffalo for being that guy in the community.
Citizen, right.
All of that. But also, he's a guy that has talent and skill, more importantly. And it's silly because what it also does, Eric, is it helps the fact that right now you don't have another starting corner with Keenan Lewis. You have a good D-line, Cam Jordan, Akeem Hicks, so you're getting pressure. That helps. QB can't hold it as long. I got a safety that's going to be able to put maybe a young drafted or Corey White corner to help me.
Couldn't agree with you
That's
more.
how big it is.
No, I couldn't agree. Now you have the luxury of not having to go into free agency and overpay for a middle-of-the-road, middle-tier guy.
Jason
you
David.
can go, right.
I mean, yeah, well, that's what happens.
That's what happens. Yeah,
that's
you
exactly
panic
right.
and you say, oh, my gosh.
Right.
Now you can go into the draft. You can get the best player available. If that player happens to be a corner, you can feel comfortable in knowing that I got a free safety back there that's a Pro Bowler, that's an All-Pro, that can help out my young corner. And I think that's going to be one of the things going forward. We got about 2 minutes left.
Yeah.
What do you think the needs are going into the draft?
Corner. Obviously, you want some future. And I like Corey White. Again, people want to go back to that Atlanta game. Look, he only got burnt once on the back end. He had everything go in front of him.
Much better slot guy, nickel guy.
Right, exactly. And again, that's a tough situation, tough place to sort of be. And again, you're comparing him to, and you're seeing him get thrown at because if I had to choose between Keenan Lewis and Corey White, where do you think I'm going?
Right.
And it's Matt Ryan. It's not some bum quarterback. So let's see what happens. Because I thought he was going to have a nice season going into training camp. He's got some athleticism and skill. Let's see what happens from that standpoint. I think you O-line, you got to go there. Don't be surprised again with receiver.
Right.
Absolutely.
I would think so as well.
Absolutely.
I think first 2 rounds, wide receiver, corner, depending on what's going on.
And Eric, more importantly, a big wide receiver.
Yeah. And then, again, when they get in the middle rounds, probably offensive linemen, which is where they've done very, very well.
And don't think that you didn't see the strength of this team was the D-line, that interior D-line. Yes. I like the youth. I like the athleticism they got there. Eric, Broderick Bunkley, who I'm shocked is still on this team.
Well, maybe a June 1st cut.
Well, and that's what I'm saying. I'm shocked.
Right.
But my point is, he is the grandfather in that D-line. Everybody else is incredibly young, and I'm not trying to get you an ulcer heart attack, but Cam Jordan's deal is next.
Yeah, but they have an option to put an option on him next year.
Right, but that's my point.
But they're going to sign him long term.
Yeah, that's my point.
There's no doubt.
Linebacker as well.
I would agree. Athletic linebacker. They can go sideline to sideline.
Lofton's only got so many more years, too. And look, you saw what Luke Kuechly has done with Carolina. Sure. We're going back to dome patrol.
Yep. No
okay?
doubt.
We need a linebacker that has speed and can make a difference. Name the last linebacker you really want to buy a jersey from.
Sounds good. Hey, Gus, thanks so much for being with us.
It was
Certainly
a pleasure,
appreciate
man.
it. Always
Absolutely,
great to have you.
Yeah.
Again, Gus Kattengell of 106.1 The Ticket. And thank you so much for tuning in tonight. Remember, there is a rebroadcast of the show each and every Friday night at 10 o'clock right here on WLAE and on Pelican Sports Television in New Orleans, Baton Rouge, and Lafayette. You can catch me on the radio weekdays, 11 a.m. until 1 p.m. on 990 a.m. WGSO. You can also check out the previous episodes of this program, also the podcast of my radio show at ericasher.com. You can follow me on Twitter at Eric_Asher. Special thanks to the WLAE production staff, Ron Yeager, Jim Dotson, Donovan Joseph, Kenny Juneau, and my producer, William Hill. Don't forget about the 2014 First NBC tuition auction, Sunday, March 30th, 2014, between 4 and 9 p.m. Stay tuned for that. My name is Eric Asher. Have a wonderful evening. We'll see you right back here on Inside New Orleans Sports. Good evening.
Inside New Orleans Sports with Eric Asher is underwritten by the Union Capital Corporation and Natel's Air Conditioning and Heating, a proud sponsor of the St. Jude Dream Home.